What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video at JDH Aquatics where we talk about anything aquariums related. Speaking of aquariums, I kind of want to tell you guys my story and how I got into fish tanks and kind of just animals in general. I have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to fish tanks, yet I've never really talked about how I got into the hobby in the first place. So I want to give you guys my story on, I guess, my first fish tank and why I'm so passionate about this hobby and these creatures. So let's get into it. Specifically for the reef tanks, I got into these 7th grade, which you're around what, like 11 or 12 in 7th grade. So I've been in this hobby for roughly like 12 or 13 years, something like that. And that's just for saltwater alone. My first saltwater tank was a 20-gallon. I'll try to find some photos. I know I have one photo at least of the GSP that I had in that tank. But in terms of like a full aquarium photo, I doubt I have one. That would be awesome. I'm gonna try to go through old like cameras and stuff and see if I can get any old photos or videos. But a 20-gallon standard aquarium was my first saltwater tank, and I slowly did add coral to that aquarium. But before that, I remember my first aquarium was like 2nd grade, which I don't even know how old you are in 2nd grade, but I remember going to a local flea market, and of course being in 2nd grade, I had no money. So I begged my mom to buy this little like 1 or 2.5 gallon all-in-one aquarium. It wasn't like an all-in-one like these where you've got the filtration built into the actual aquarium, but it came with like this filter that was attached to the back, essentially like a hang-on back filter, but it was part of the aquarium, and it had like a base to it as well as like a light and a hood. So it was a full setup, and it was probably like 10 bucks, something real cheap, but it was really dirty. It was on the ground of one of these little like lots at the flea market, and we took it home. And I'm sure I ended up just throwing like some substrate and fake plants and whatever fish I could get my hands on at the time, which thinking about that now is real scary. But 2nd grade, first aquarium. But saltwater tanks I got into about 7th grade, so a little bit later. So from grade 2nd to grade 7th, I guess, so like 5 years, I only kept freshwater tanks. And those were generally like 10 and 20 gallons. I don't think I ever kept anything bigger than a 20 at the time for freshwater. But once I hit 7th grade, I pretty much only did saltwater tanks. And I had a few freshwater tanks thrown in the mix here and there. Ever since I had my first saltwater reef tank set up, you know, like 13 years ago, I've only really dealt with reef tanks since then. Aquariums in general, I've had like dozens. Just so many aquariums I can't even count, especially with the nano tanks. I've gone through DIY acrylic aquariums that I've bought from local reef stores to tanks that have been sent to me, and you know, my innovative marines that I love. And that's been one of the questions I've had for myself over all of these years, is what keeps me coming back to this hobby, and why am I so invested and obsessed with fish tanks? I can still remember being in 8th grade on like a Friday afternoon at school, hanging out with who I thought were my friends at the time, and everyone's, you know, talking about plans, what they're gonna do on their Friday afternoon after school. And I would talk about, you know, I'm gonna go home, I'm probably gonna clean my fish tank, and then I'm gonna bike the 2 miles to my local reef store. And even if I didn't buy a piece of coral, I just wanted to hang out and see all the fish in the coral. And I remember my friends thinking that was weird and kind of like dissing me a little bit, and saying that was like kind of just, why are you wasting your Friday cleaning a fish tank or going to a fish store? But that is where I found my peace, and I got a lot of joy out of it. I still don't really know where this obsession came from, but like with any other hobby, it's kind of hard to explain. Fish tanks and animals in general are kind of just like that happy, safe space for me. If I'm ever feeling down, or I just want a boost of serotonin or something like that, I'll hop on YouTube and I'll look up a 10-gallon saltwater reef tank build. And then of course, being able to have these living pieces of art in whatever room you put them in, the water movement as well as the colorful corals and the fish, it just does something. Aside from aquariums, I have also had a bunch of other different types of pets. At one point, I had like a 3 or almost 4 foot green iguana. I've had a few bearded dragons, couple leopard geckos, frogs, turtles, tortoises, snakes, hamsters. I've had a bunch of different animals, but I've always came back to aquariums. I would like to get into other types of animals. I love reptiles, specifically tortoises, and then again bearded dragons. I think getting a couple of those guys would be super cool for the channel, and just also to have as a cool pet. For the aquariums and specifically the reef tanks, I actually take that back. For the freshwater tanks too, especially in the beginning, learning the cycling process and all of that, I did have a little bit of difficulty, but more so for the reef tanks and getting into the coral, I had a lot of trials and tribulations figuring out what works for me and what doesn't, what's kind of easier to keep and what's not. And with that, I had a lot of losses as well. And I'm sure a lot of you guys watching also had your hurdles that you had to get over and have experienced similar things that I have. But it is just part of the hobby, even though it is so hard to lose a piece of coral or especially a fish. So where I'm going now is a lot different than where I started in the hobby. And where I'm at now is, of course, with the YouTube channel for the past few years, really just trying to showcase my aquariums, give some sort of information to you guys, and just relay the problems that I've had that may be similar to the situations that you guys are going through right now. Considering I am in school for marketing, I sort of treat this channel as part of like my portfolio and a little bit of practice for potential work that could be in the future. And ultimately, I would like to try and turn this into somewhat of a career. I love working with aquariums, the tech side of it, and then of course content creation. So that's the ultimate goal, is to be able to make some sort of living off of creating content that revolves around animals, and more specifically aquatic life. That was a kind of a long spiel of how I got into aquariums, but again, this is one of, if not my biggest passion and hobby. I'm pretty much researching some sort of aspect of this hobby every single day, whether it's just jumping on Marketplace and trying to find used tanks, or it's researching an issue with an algae that I have, or trying to figure out the husbandry for a type of coral or something like that. So we're always trying to learn, always researching, and of course always trying to elevate and expand. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. As always, if you guys have any questions or comments, just leave it in the comment section below, or you can DM me at my Instagram. The link is also in the description below. But with all of that being said, I will be sure to catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.